Men's suffering gets pathologized. Also, male concerns just get dismissed.
Right.
Men are seen as, well, less valuable. Traditional gender roles and societal pacts have apparently shifted.
Suffocating experience.
Pretty much anything causing a man suffering, it ends up getting twisted, used against him, like in the form of guilt or accusation. For instance, if you're alone, the framing presented is that there must be something wrong with you.
A personal failing.
Right. And if you try to express pain, you just get labeled like an incel,
Right.
implying that just the act of suffering somehow makes you lose dignity. That even the voices you hear denouncing patriarchy, well, they still end up judging a man's worth mostly by his ability to attract women. These voices don't care that a depressed, wounded, or hollow person isn't attractive.
Wow.
Yeah. Not being attractive because you're suffering, it's seen only as a personal failure, often with barely disguised contempt. These voices actually take pleasure in that perceived failure.
Pleasure.
Hatred towards men can be expressed pretty openly and then just wrap it up in the language of empowerment or social justice.
Suffering is a personal failing. And if a man expresses pain, he might face accusation, maybe even contempt, sometimes sort of hidden behind acceptable language. Any attempt by a man to express discomfort or any criticism or even what might be a legitimate demand, it just gets reduced down to one thing: misogyny. There's no room for nuance, no effort to understand, context doesn't matter.
Exactly. And being accused of misogyny is framed as like the ultimate sin for a man.
The worst thing.
The worst thing, and no excuse is ever acceptable for it.
Any male critique isn't just debated, it's automatically labeled as the worst possible offense and dismissed.
Which brings us to the idea that fundamentally, men are worth less.
Wow, okay.
Society as a whole, both men and women, has internalized this idea.
Internalized what specifically?
The concept that, a man suffers less, feels less, and at the end of the day just matters less.
So not seen as fully human.
A man isn't seen as a full human being, but as a resource, a competitor, or a problem.
Resource, competitor, or problem.
Women fighting what they call oppressive structures, mechanisms of survival, or like gears within those social pacts that, though imperfect, supported survival and functional coexistence.
But what about men in, say, the MRA, men's rights activists?
Well, they aren't fighting outdated rules or structures in the same way. They are fighting something much more raw and visceral: hatred.
Hatred, not structures, but hatred.
Yeah, it's about confronting a deep collective feeling that plainly says men are worth less.
Okay.
That they are expendable, that they are annoying, that they are dangerous, that they must be corrected, monitored, or simply ignored. Society doesn't discriminate against men out of clumsiness or tradition. It despises them.
It despises them. Let's shift focus a bit now to the changes in gender roles.
Right, the past. Each gender had a role, and each role came with both duties and rights.
Okay, the social pacts.
So social pacts, exactly. The female role has been redefined or outright dismantled in the name of individual freedom.
But what about the male role?
The male role has been stripped of all prestige without freeing men from their former obligations.
So men lose the prestige, but keep the obligations.
Men still carry those traditional burdens to provide, protect, compete, and restrain themselves.
Provide, protect, compete, restrain. The traditional stuff.
Yes, they do this now. Without reward, without recognition, without companionship. They do it in exchange for nothing.
In exchange for nothing.
The modern man remains a slave to his gender, but now under a narrative that degrades him.
A slave to his gender under a degrading narrative.
Contrast this situation. She is no longer bound by any obligation because she no longer even has a defined role.
No defined role.
Nothing and everything at once. A shapeless figure, free of all burdens, like a spoiled child with no duties or responsibility, but endowed with a social status superior to that of a man. Women have, for the most part, acted with selfishness and betrayal, abandoning the pact that made the very civilization she enjoys possible. This abandonment is actively condemning to collapse and replacement the same civilization that made her rise possible.
Undermining the very foundation that allowed for female advancement. How are viewed now? Men who still uphold those traditional burdens.
Men who still do what's traditionally expected. They're perceived, at best, with ingratitude or indifference toward their effort.
Okay. Indifference at best.
And at worst, with satisfaction at their downfall.
Satisfaction at their downfall. So either ignored or are actually pleased to see them fail.
Yeah, and just to quickly sort of recap the main points we explored, male suffering gets twisted, pathologized.
Right.
Any male concerns are just automatically shot down as misogyny. Men are seen as less valuable, expendable even.
Yeah.
And how gender roles have shifted and these societal pacts have been abandoned. Maybe a final thought for you to chew on. If men are seen as less valuable, as expendable, while they're still expected to carry these traditional burdens,
Yeah.
and if those societal pacts between genders have been abandoned, then what future challenges or maybe even conflicts are, well, inevitable?
Yeah.